Tony Anderson from Florida. It's Friday afternoon, and I think, let's see, time, 3:42. So I got on here a little bit earlier than what I had planned, and I want to go down and maybe hit the beach for just a little bit. So I decided to come on a little bit early. I don't know if you guys know, but Hurricane Fred, or actually it's not a hurricane yet, I think it's still a tropical storm. It's going to be moving into the Florida area soon, maybe within the next 24 to 48 hours. And I don't know, because I'm up in northern Florida, how that will affect us, but I'm sure that we're going to get some rain out of all of this for sure. But I wanted to just talk for a little bit today. Hi, how are you? Hey, Dana, are you at work still? I just wanted to talk just a little bit, at work. I want to talk just a little bit about healthcare spending. Hi, Serena. Nice to see you again. I want to talk just a little bit about some healthcare spending. I'm going to walk that into some topics that are near and dear to my heart, and that's really around our diet and stress and obesity. And then I might take it into fibromyalgia as well, because I have some things I want to talk about that, but I don't know if I'll get time. Hi, Serena. I will give you a call this weekend or maybe tonight if you'd like. And Dana, drive carefully while you're listening. So healthcare spending. I don't know if many of you have done, a lot of reading about how we spend in the United States of America and how that relates to outcomes in the United States. But about 17.5% of all healthcare, of the gross domestic product in the United States alone, is spent on healthcare. And really, if you look retrospectively back a number of years, because I can remember a few years back, looking at that, and it really hasn't changed a whole lot. But if you really did a comparison, and you started making a comparison to, say, New Zealand or Canada, or some of the areas where there's more socialized medicine, significantly less in the area of spending on healthcare dollars. And when you look at outcomes then, so if you want to just compare how the outcome of our health, we are significantly sicker here in the United States. And I used to look at a lot of that back probably in the late 2000s, probably 2008, 2010, because I was running a women's hospital out in California. So we were looking a lot at outcomes related to our babies that were born. And you always were reviewing neonatal or baby deaths. And what was that significantly connected to? And how did that compare universally to other countries? And, in the United States, we still are not as, here we have all of this wonderful medicine that we can offer people, and yet we still don't have the outcomes that other countries have in the area of neonatal deaths and the area of women delivering and passing away. You can take that forward into almost any disease process or any outcome, and we're going to be compared not as favorably. One of the things that they benchmark and they look at is how long do you live? Okay, so we have some of the best medicine in the world here in the United States. And yet, the average age of an American is 73.8 years. And then you can compare that to, say, Switzerland, which has one of the longer lengths of life and one of the lowest spending in healthcare. And I think it's, I have it written, 83.5 years. And although that doesn't seem like a lot of difference, because you're talking maybe 5 years, but to somebody that's older, 5 years is a long time. But the same thing applies in almost every outcome that we have. So let's just think about obesity, because obesity causes disease. And in the United States, we have a real problem with obesity. So in the United States alone, we have the average BMI, body mass index, in the United States is 30%. Or 30. So at 30, you're considered obese. And about 18% of our population of women of men is obese, and about 21% of the women fall into that category. So you're talking 40% of the population in the United States has a BMI greater 30 or greater, and in other countries, the BMI is much lower. So we have a problem with obesity, and there's other statistics that you can look at associated with that. Let's just think about in China, for example. China really never had a lot of issues related to obesity until about a decade ago. And about a decade ago, what actually flooded their market over there? And it was McDonald's and fast food. Hi, Daniel. Fast food types of industry moved over into China. And now we're seeing in China body mass indexes that are much greater than what we have ever seen before. So that's another indication of the way in which we eat makes a huge difference in the way in which we put fat onto our bodies, and why our body mass index here in the United States is about 40% of the population or more. That could even be a low-end ballpark. I mean, you can read some of the statistics out there, and some of them even read higher than that. So that in itself is a marker for the way in which we eat in our country. And what do we eat? Fast food. I mean, we're always running our lives around, we don't have enough time. We'll stop at McDonald's. We'll stop at Burger King or wherever it is that your favorite joint is. But that's where we're eating the processed food instead of looking for better nutrition. And so, that's one big factor. But the other huge factor that I've talked about before, and I know that I keep talking about it, I was running a little slow, so I got some amp coffee on board, is sugar. We do know that I think the statistic that I looked on not very long ago was that the average American eats 150 pounds a year. 150 pounds a year. I probably was one of those for a while. 150 pounds a year of sugar, and refined sugar. Sugar somehow that's been put in some of our products, and sugar somehow that we decide to put into our bodies by our choice. And I know, I'm on a crusade to not do that. And so why is it that we shouldn't eat sugar? And I'm going to just take us down that simple little pathway about its two molecules in sugar. There's fructose and there's glucose. Fructose is not utilized by any cell of our body. Where does it go? It goes into our processing plant in our body, which is our liver. Glucose goes into our bloodstream, and we can utilize that for energy, unless we have too much of it, unless we're feeding too much of it to our bodies. And then our insulin levels are going to be high, trying to push that into our cells so that we can lower our blood sugar levels. So that's a whole nother talk that I've done, and I'll do more of them. But sugar is the kiss of death. And so I really want us all to spend a lot more. Thank you, Daniel, for all of your all the things that you're saying there. It's so true that our diet is so important to us, important to our length of our life as well. But sugar is the kiss of death for all of us. And so we need to really give thought when we're adding food into our bodies. I think it leads me into my whole life that I've kind of committed to doing intermittent fasting. So I'm not putting pressure on my insulin or on my pancreas to produce insulin to keep my blood sugar levels down. But secondly, it's a kiss of death for our liver to be eating processed sugar. So what does obesity lead to? And, I could put this out to all of you, and I'm sure that you could start typing in what it leads to. But one of the biggest things that we see is type 2 diabetes, right? Type 2 diabetes is extraordinarily prevalent in our population. We see it oftentimes in the in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, because we're slowing down and we're not eating right, and we're eating the sad American diet. So that's one of the biggest issues that leads us into obesity, and that is a disease outcome of our obesity. And then cardiovascular disease. But let's just talk about obesity real quick. So obesity, we spend about $210 billion a year out of that gross domestic product on obesity alone. And that's kind of segmented separately in the statistics that I read. But look, think about this. Diabetes, $327 billion are spent a year out of the gross domestic product to keep somebody treated for type 2 diabetes or diabetes. Cancer, $300 billion, which is an outcome oftentimes from being obese too. Cardiovascular disease, $220 billion. When you think about cardiovascular disease and you think about who really fits into those categories of developing cardiovascular disease, it's usually somebody that is obese, that has developed diabetes, type 2 usually, and that their diet is so poor that now they're developing cardiovascular disease because of plaque in their system, in their body. Strokes, they're going to see that with, some of the carotid arteries being filled with plaque, your coronary arteries surrounding your heart filled with plaque. So obesity plays a huge role in cardiovascular disease as well. But then the other one that I thought was really interesting, $640 billion a year is spent in GI disorders. And what is the world that I'm living in, at least right now, is GI disorders. GI disorders are oftentimes related to, number one, primarily the food that we eat, especially in the United States of America, sugars and processed foods, stressors in our lives that, create havoc in our gut, and then medications that we take, especially those, and I've said this before, that go out and get antibiotics. Maybe you cross the border and you get them, but it obliterates your microbiome in your gut. So almost all of what I'm talking about today, when you're talking about where we spend our healthcare dollars, we spend most of it on obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, GI disorders, and most of it is related, in our country anyway, related to the sad American diet around the foods that we eat and around the sugars that we put into our bodies, causing disease. So it wreaks havoc in our microbiome and our intestinal tract, specifically in our small intestinal tract, which is where most of the nutrient and food absorptions take place. And if we don't have universal microbiome there, we are going to have sickness and we're going to have illness. So the starting point for all of us is what we put in our mouth for food. Because secondarily to that, I want to just bring in our gut health products, because this is, I'm selling the products, but I believe in the products wholeheartedly, because there's so many of us in the United States of America that have had a poor diet that now, and I'm one of them, I'm going to admit that I love sugar, but I've made my commitment that I'm cleaning my act up. So I want my microbiome in my intestinal tract to be healthy. And then I'm supplementing my microbiome with high fiber, which we find in our happy tides, and nucleotides, which helps the healing process in our intestinal tract. Remember, nucleotides, as you get older, they go down in numbers. They're not as readily available anymore. And we need those. They're essential for our cells, for regeneration of our cells, rejuvenation of our cells. So they help with healing your intestinal tract and getting that out into your bloodstream so that it can go to every single cell in your body. So really important. Secondly, at BioMyX, which I think works in combination with our Happy Tides. But the BioMyX has short-chain fatty acids that we call them tributarates. This helps to pass through the stomach because the stomach breaks down a lot of supplements. And I don't know if you realize that, but a lot of supplements that you put into your body, once it gets into the stomach, it has to pass that hydrochloric acid and all the other breakdown of your foods and supplements that go on. But this is actually has a guided process that gets it into your small intestinal tract where it works. Short-chain fatty acids help heal the intestinal tract and also are really essential for other areas of your body's health as well. A, D, and K, really important for your immune system. If your immune system isn't healthy, you're going to get disease. There's just no question. And if your gut's not healthy, your immune system's not going to be healthy. There is a connection between the two. It's a strong correlation. So really think about that. So A, D, and K, it's essential for your immune system, your lymphocytes and your neutrophils and your T cells and your B cells for all of their development. The D is essential for every cell in our body. In fact, it's not, I've said this before, it's not a vitamin, it's a hormone. And it's essential for every cell in your body's development. K is for blood clotting. And, without K, your blood doesn't clot effectively. And it's one I always talk about that when I worked in neonatal medicine, because that's where I first started my work as a nurse, as I was a neonatal intensive care nurse. And so a baby, when they're first born, they're given vitamin K because they don't clot their blood readily at birth. And that's universally given across the United States. So really essential for our clotting health. And then Happy Humol, one of the strongest anti-inflammatory agents in the world. It's xanthrohumol. And it's found in hops, found in beer, so your beer drinkers are probably getting your Happy Humol. It's also the strongest anti-inflammatory that you can find. So it's a natural food product. But it's mixed in here with three other things: PQQ, which helps your energy; carbon 60, which is clouded to increase your lifespan. And they've done some studies in Europe on that in rats and in mice, because their life is shorter, so you could actually measure it between those that got carbon 60 versus those that didn't. And they actually lived longer. So not that we want our mice and rats to live a long time, but at least it speaks to what it possibly could do to us as humans. And then curcumin 3, which is anti-inflammatory as well. So these are products called our triad. I know I have some consumers on here today that are, hi Richard, how are you? Hi Michelle, that are actually taking these products as well. And I would just challenge all of us to really think about in our lifetime that we're alive. We wake up every day and we go to sleep every night. And we have that opportunity to make a difference in our life. And the opportunity that we have is to be the healthiest version of ourselves. I feel blessed that I have been in healthcare for a long time, and I can say that I haven't been as healthy all of that time. I went in and out of spells of being extraordinarily healthy, and then those times where I wasn't. So it is up to us. We're the driver in the driver's seat to decide every bit of that we want. So I would just say to you, you're the driver of your health. You make the decisions in your life about being healthy. And I want to be part of your journey and to help you along, whatever it is that I can do to do that with you. So PM me if you want to talk further. I love to talk about intermittent fasting. I love to talk about our products. I love to talk about diets. I have videos that I do on different foods to eat that really help with being anti-inflammatory and antioxidants. So I'm very interested in helping all of you get to your optimal level of health. But anyway, so that's it for today. I think that I need to close for now, and I'm going to head down to the beach and just see if I can see some sun for a little while before we get overcast and the hurricane comes our way. So bye for now from Florida.